Hi everyone, thanks for watching. You can support our work on our website ageoftruthtv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, BitChute and Brighteon. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To be sure not to miss any of our shows, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website ageoftruthtv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. This roundtable show is entitled CHECKMATE-21, and our two guests today are numerologists, word and symbolism decoders, gematria experts, historians and researchers. One is very elusive and must be disguised for personal reasons. Nevertheless, his messages are always of great importance. We have had him on the show before, where he was decoding the numerical language and secret hidden occult messages written in code on the front page cover of the Economist magazine annual edition. He is now back on the show with new eye-opening revelations, decoding important messages about the world in 2021 and onwards. He is joined by a former builder who is now the author of the bestseller, Putting a Stopper in the Bottle of Death and the Occult. J.K. of the Clapham Saints, the Clapham Sect, and Gary Fraughhen. Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and hello to two very fascinating and extraordinary gentlemen joining us today from Great Britain. Gary Fraughhen from Southeast England and J.K. of the Clapham Saints, the Clapham Sect. It's great to have both of you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having us. Absolutely.
Jay, you have been with us before on our show, and it's been quite extraordinary. You were part of our Checkmate series in 2020, and we would like to call this show CHECKMATE-21, also a reference to the infamous UN Agenda 21 New World Order plan, which we have been talking a lot about and exposing on Age of Truth TV. And you have a lot of new things to share with us. You were decoding the Economist magazine annual edition last year on the show, and we did several shows on that. And today you have a lot of new information to share when you are decoding new editions of the Economist magazine about what is happening here in 2021 and what will happen. Also in regards to, of course, the world health crisis and the Great Reset, the economic crash. Both of you are numerologists, word and symbolism decoders, historians and researchers. And we have to remind our audience that J.K. is very elusive and does not want to be seen on camera, and so we have to disguise his face and also his voice. But Gary Fraughhen, you are out there for people to see and to hear, and you are the author behind the book, putting a stopper in The Bottle of Death and the Occult, which was a bestseller. And this is very fascinating. So, gentlemen, we are happy to have you on. You will be presenting some slides to the audience so that everybody can understand the numbers, the words, the colors, the decoding of the Economist magazine and what is going to happen. This is going to be an explosive hour. Very fascinating, quite eye-opening, I'm sure. But let's first begin with you, Jay. Last year, you caused quite a stir with our audience. It was a very popular show that we did with you, and we also did the follow-up shows in the Checkmate series, which was very, very explosive. Some of those shows are no longer on our channel. They were censored and taken down, but they can be seen on our BitChute and Brighteon Age of Truth TV channels. But some of the information that you were decoding on the annual Economist magazine from December 2019 about what would happen in 2020 came true, but some of it did not come true, like Trump being re-elected. And some of the viewers have asked some critical questions to why did you decode this? What was actually going on? Was this a distraction? What happened? Did they do this on purpose by putting this on the front page of the Economist magazine? Please tell us your thoughts before we go into the recent material.
Thanks, Lucas. The first thing I'd like to say is reality is very fluid. It can dynamically change as we progress daily or weekly at this moment in time. So reality changes according to what we're doing with our consciousness. Sharing information can change the outcomes and directions that we go in. So it affects the choices that we can make, and it can make a big difference to the journey ahead to see what is coming. If we don't like the possibility of what's coming, we can either prepare or make some appropriate changes. If we see something we don't like, we can put some conscious attention on that outcome and perhaps go around it. Or if it's something we do like, we can maybe bring it to manifest, like we did with the Checkmate series. We create our future realities, and this is why it can be important to look ahead and assess where we are going and whether or not we need to do something different. The universe rewards action, and that's why it's important to use your right of consent to reset your reality. So the decoding of the Economist magazine was given information for your informed viewers to take a view on it. It wasn't a prediction. It was more to do with looking at the information and not consenting to their false flag events that were coming. And what's happened from last year's decoding, I've managed to find that there is another transmission, if you like, that the Economist magazine has broadcasted. Now, this happened in April, but there were four consecutive magazines. It was March the 27th, the 3rd of April, the 10th of April, and the 17th of April. Today, what we'll go through is, if we can go through the first of the set of four, which is the 27th of March. The information that I've decoded, Gary will actually be able to drill down even further.
So Gary Fraughten, it's very interesting and fascinating to have you on the show, and I know you have a lot to share. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, okay, and introduce yourself.
Ultimately, thanks for having me on. Ultimately, I'm just a builder. I'm actually a chartered surveyor with the Royal Institution, but I build big stuff, bridges and the big stuff that people see. I woke up in 2001 in an event that some people may know about. I've spent a lot of my working career working for elite families and people in power. And during the course of my professional life, I've collected data and the way the elite families are taught and how they teach their children. All these individuals, they need people like me to empty the garbage and keep their homes dry. So as a surveyor, I've been into places most people don't go into, special government buildings and all the rest of it, all over the place, all over the world. And all I've done is accumulate the occult. And don't forget, the occult as a word comes from Akaba, from when we used to explore organs to cut into them to find out what was wrong with them. Now we've got CAT scans and x-rays and things like that, so we don't need to cut in anymore. But the word occult means to seek what is hidden. That's what occult means. A lot of people think it means evil. No, it means revealing something that you just can't see. So all I've done is try to gather the information so that when I retired early, I'd be able to write a series of 10 books, but we've run out of time. So I rushed the book through a few years ago. It was put on the banned books in America. Then it was printed also in China. They went missing. So I boiled the book down. The first one's gone out. It's sold in 52 countries. I thought maybe 5 or 6 people might buy a copy. To my surprise, many thousands have bought it. So it's the first word is about it. The first book is about words, the spelling and the spells and how the chants are used against us. And so I basically use these things against the other side. So for example, on Amazon they sell for $19.99. I discount $3.33 and sell $6.66, and I use these numbers exploring to see how they actually work, and they do work. I can honestly say they do work. Only I'm using this secret society stuff that's been known about for millennia, but I'm using it against them. It's a battle that's shown itself. So I'm just finishing off book number 2, which is about numbers, and it's really strange how I met Jay over this, because we were in a library researching a certain number that I was searching for, and so was he, and our paths crossed. So synchronicity was working, and even now we both chuckled. I mean, Jay, I know him. He's a real guy. He's like me. He's got an existence of nothing sinister, but we're both in this fight, and more and more of us are coming together. More and more of shall we say the army of truth. We're finding each other, and the people that I've met in the last 9 months is frightening. Just on the sort of work that we're doing as individuals in trying to crack these codes and break these messages of as I see it, an awakening, and people are resonating. Resonance is again another number, but people are willing to listen to idiots like me because they're resonating with us, and they're giving us information, and we're feeding information to them, and we're, as a collective, we're coming together. And how it's happening, no idea. I'm just a builder, but something is going on. We're cracking the codes.
But you obviously have great knowledge into the world of numerology and understanding how to decode the numbers and the words, and I guess colors as well. I guess everything is connected, and everything we are surrounded by is connected to words and colors. And you talked about casting a spell on the population, I suppose, spell and spelling. You two are, I guess, magicians in your own right, not to cast a spell, but to break the spell and dissolve this deprogramming, this programming, and become deprogrammers in a way. I guess this is what you actually can do when you try to explain what words and numbers really mean and the significance of it, how it can be used for evil and for bad as well as good. Please explain the significance of these numbers and words, because we all use them. We all, you know, just go about our daily lives and we use the spelling.
Well, just with the phonics that we use, I can make you hate me, and equally I can make you love me, just by the spell and the spelling I use and the order I put them in. With the resonance that we have, don't forget the Phoenicians were the masters of sound. They were the ones in history could do things with sound, according to some of the biblical texts, both in the Quran and the 200 books that sit behind it. Then you've got the Torah and you've also got the Bible. These things are warnings. If you're religious, I've got no problem with it. I'm not. I'm quite spiritual. But there's something else going on. The phonics of the Phoenicians was really important from the Akkadians and the Sumerians, which is something else I'm going into at the moment. But I taught myself Latin, and the resonance of some of these words are quite interesting. So with the Phoenician language and the phonics, that's why we have the word telephone. That's why if you're lying to me, you're a phony. And so within the book one, I break these words into pieces for people to see them. And it's a German word, is the best described linguistic term I've come across. There's a Japanese word, but it's not quite as good. And also the characters of writing it aren't for the Western world. But the German word is Gestalt. And a Gestalt means you're altering someone's mind to shock them like a snap of a finger, and then they see things differently. So suddenly the code is there for them to see, and I believe it's about us all sharing this hidden knowledge, this occult. We all are entitled to this information. Humanity is doing its own disservice by those that have these secret codes and mysteries that they've used against us for so long. Time's up. It's time for everybody to see everything, and then it's an even playing field, and we can all just get on. You know, we don't want to fight. We don't want to argue. We don't want to cause hurt, harm, and injury on the planet. That's the way it should not be. But we find ourselves in very serious times, and these codes and energies of numbers, frequencies, letters, and phonics need to be shared for all. And then it's fine. It's all going to be good. But there are unfortunately people that don't want this stuff out.
So the elitists, the Illuminati levels, let's say, they are using numerology and, of course, also words and constructing words and sentences in a certain way in order to do what? To program people for mind control, for dumbing them down, or how would you explain it?
Well, we've got to be careful, again, with the language you're using, dumbing them down. If you pick up a copy of Shakespeare, Henry V, for example, and read chapter 3 of Casting His Father's Crown into the Hazard, this is how people used to speak in everyday London. I was involved in construction of the second and newer Globe Theatre. The stage, by the way, is 2 feet too far over to the left, and that was my fault because I measured it wrong. So there's another claim to fame. But when you look at the history of our language, we're not so much dumbed down. We are going backward in terms of our intellect. We're going backwards in terms of our standing under words. We become very lazy. And when you think the amount of people that never used to be able to read, and now people can read, they're even lazier in terms of the word we're using. The thing about numbers, which is, again, this part of this presentation, not just words, but the numbers are numerically involved with words and letters, because letters have energy in accordance with numerology and gematria. Numerology is there is a number associated with a letter. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Then you've got reversed, and then you've got Jewish, and then you've got satanic, and there's all sorts of other ones involved. These things have energy among them from the original letters we used to have in the English alphabet before the J, the H, and the K was added. So there is an enormous amount of information of the languaging that we're using today and we're going backwards. And it's the same with numbers. We unfortunately in the West, not in the East, but in the West, we're ashamed to say we can't read, and yet we boast at a dinner party about having no head for numbers. Well, numbers is half our language. The words are one half, the numbers are the other half, and some of us boast about not being able to speak it. I've got a bit of a problem with that. But luckily, I had a math teacher as a child who taught me not to be afraid of numbers. Children are scared of numbers because their parents are scared of numbers and their grandparents are scared of numbers. So they grow up only knowing half the language, and never mind the layers of language that go with those two separate languages. It's about revealing and gestalting this stuff for people so they can break these codes for themselves, and then it's all going to be good.
But would you say that you have to be a very good mathematician or being into a mathematical kind of person in order to understand numerology?
No. If you take a child and you say, what's one banana, or two bananas, or three bananas, but if you change the word banana into a third, you're now discussing fractions. And you're discussing elements within mathematics. So 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. You're still discussing bananas, but you're using a different word. And that's what children are scared of, because they're not taught in a way that the word association with the number becomes a fractious under fractions. It's about embracing that side of the language. And unfortunately, we've got some very lazy teachers out there that have to go along with a curriculum, and the curriculum is led by the government. Don't forget private schools, or as they're called in the UK, which are public schools, and there's nothing public about them. They do not teach the same type of math that they do in state schools. People in state schools aren't taught how to handle debt. They're not taught to handle interest. They're not taught to handle all this stuff that the elitist schools teach their children, because I've seen it firsthand, and I can see how the children are molded from a very, very early age to a state of expression that at 7 they're far in excess of a student that's starting a degree course. And I've had over 80 graduates in my time, and when they arrive with degrees, they don't know how to do trigonometry manually. They need a calculator. So there's a real problem with the education system and how it's constructed. And they removed Latin the same year they removed our money from the gold standard. This stuff isn't a coincidence. So your word dumbing down, to go back to that dichotomy, is an interesting discussion in itself.
Very, very fascinating. And what certainly was fascinating was to do the shows with you, Jay, last year, and we did a whole Checkmate series. What do you think about us calling this CHECKMATE-21? How does that resonate with you?
It's actually quite fitting, because the decoding, the latest decoding update that we're going to be sharing with you today, it will actually finish up with the Economist magazine 2021. You may recall that we started off the Checkmate series with the Economist magazine 2020, but you'll see the information when we walk through it. I think we're going to be walking through from March the 27th, and we will finish off with 2021. So the title Checkmate 2021 is quite appropriate.
Great. And before we do that, because I know you'll be showing us slides today in order for the viewers to follow the presentation here and to understand it in the best possible way. What are your thoughts, Jay, about where are we at this point? We are still in the middle of this unbelievable world crisis where everything horrible will and already has happened. But what will come? Will that be very, very bad? which we talked about last year, or can we change the whole game? Because I do recall you talking about them actually releasing this whole thing much earlier than they had planned, because I think it was planned to be put out there in this year in 2021. But they already did it, of course, in 2020. And this has been a long-term New World Order plan and UN Agenda 21 and everything we already discussed. But when will it end?
Well, that depends on humanity, Lucas, because previously when we spoke to an audience, if you like, that has now, I would say, grown in terms of raising their vibration, and you've got a very informed audience. So humanity last year has changed this year. So we should be able to manifest out of these false flag events, and I call them their cards. So the events that we decoded in the 2020 magazine, they had events or cards, and because we were able to, at that moment in time, raise our awareness, we were able to manifest out of these events. Where are we going? Again, it's going to depend on humanity. So long as we're able to decode the information, or if you like, intercept their transmission using the numerical language system that we previously used, get the information out there. As soon as you shine that light in that darkness, they lose their power.
But what we certainly talked about last year when you were decoding the Economist magazine front page from 2020 was that Trump would be reelected.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Now, there's two views here, Lucas. Now, one school of thought is, yes, he won and the election was stolen from him. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought is Biden won. This could be a psyop. So it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government always gets in. So I think it's going to be a question of patiently waiting for this autumn to roll out. And I think it will happen quite shortly that the truth will be revealed. And what I mean by that is that if Trump is playing on the same side as the deep state, that will shortly be revealed, maybe this autumn, because I know that there's a lot of people in the truth community that are living in hopium and they view Trump as a savior. My question is that why is that information encoded in the Economist magazine when we know that the Economist magazine is owned by the Red Shield family? Why is that energy found there consistently? It wasn't just found, it's quite fascinating actually, because we decoded that information in the Economist 2020 annual magazine. It was there. And recently, 4 months ago, that same energy has been found yet again. So the only thing I can say is, if you believe that the magazine was wrong, I think we just need to wait for this winter to roll out, because we may find from the decoding that we're going to go through today that Biden may be exiting. And if that's the case, what is the next step?
But do you think actually that they did that on purpose, maybe to put all of that on the front page in order to distract people like you and Gary and others to make us all look in the wrong direction, for example? Because if Trump is part of the whole deep state, but playing a game, playing this game as well, and of course we certainly do know that he has been dividing the truth movement, the growing truth movement, and it's all part of the Hegelian dialectic, divide and conquer, of course. But what we do know is that there's a lot of people who has a lot of hope for him to take down the deep state, to drain the swamp, and for him to do good. And they also hope and wish that he'll soon return because the election was rigged and Biden was not elected. So what are your thoughts on this when the Economist magazine actually revealed to people who can decode it like you that he would be reelected and a lot was going to happen also this year?
What I can say about that is we are now in a period of time where the Earth's vibration is completely different to what it was last year. The darkness will not be able to survive in the new vibration that we are presently living through. And obviously you've got people now, you've got a mass awakening. And what will happen is that within this mass awakening, the potential for creating the 100 monkey effect is quite high. So whatever card that they're going to play, we have the power, and we need to believe that we have the power to manifest out of these realities. So it's not relevant that we decoded information last year that Trump was going to win, because as I said earlier, reality is actually very fluid. And what's important right now is to use your right to consent to reset your reality.
And Q is the number 17, huh?
Correct. And that is repeatedly found in the Economist magazine time and time again. My question is, why is that energy of Q there?
What do you believe the whole Q thing, the Q movement, which is also very, very elusive, and we don't know who is really behind it. What do you think that whole thing is? Do you think we can trust it?
You can only trust something that can provide the evidence. We need to see the evidence of what they're claiming. That was echoed last year during the both of the Checkmate interviews.
And before we return to you, Gary, what are your thoughts on the whole Trump-Biden thing and Q, the Q movement?
Well, if Q were a woman, last time I trusted her, I would have had a boy. So it's all about proof in the pudding. You can talk the talk, but you've got to walk the walk. And nothing has, I'll use the word loosely, manifested out of the Q movement in terms of, as you put it, draining the swamp. They're three interesting words. Nothing's come of it. All that's happened is the ball has been kicked into the long grass and people keep waiting and nothing is improving. And there I have a problem, because if you're interviewed for a role to carry out a job, as I am, I get my instruction and I'm given a date. If I don't deliver, I'm going to get hammered. But people aren't hammering Q. And there lies in my, not frustration or distrust. It is just an element of maybe a distraction for a delay. So like all things in life, you have black, you have white, the fight between good and evil, which is why police cars in America are black and whites. It's the fight between good and evil. But you also get a bit of grey now and again, and you can bring in the grey to fuzzy the edges. So nothing has come forth in terms of the Q element. When I first got into it, because Q is heavily into the occult delivery of things, I found it really interesting. But it wasn't long before I started to see things I started to feel uncomfortable with in terms of delivery. You know, you can order all the pizza toppings you want, but if the pizza doesn't arrive, then you've just got to go and buy it from somewhere else.
But what does the Q really stand for?
In my opinion, it's a backup for Trump to have levels of audience, both those that are, shall we say, not informed, and those that who follow the Q movement are informed, but there's never any proof of the swamp being drained.
But why do you think that a lot of prominent figures within this truth community, people who've been researching for a long time and speaking for a long time to a growing audience, becoming, you know, high profiled actually online, talking on shows like ours, why do you think they started to promote Trump and Q and actually became quite some, they became like his advocate in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I mean, that makes good conversation. I like to be challenged. That's what makes good conversation. Of the some of the questioning that's on your show by your informed viewers, that's good conversation. You shouldn't be frightened of being challenged. But some of these advocates of Q don't like being challenged, and again, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm a guy. I'm a realist. You know, I make things. I create things. If you're not making something happen and nothing's being delivered, then I have a problem.
Great. So please do some checkmating for us. CHECKMATE-21. So much has happened this year. Everything we feared has already happened, and people have voluntarily accepted to get a certain kind of medicine, and on a very, very large scale. Certainly here in Denmark, it is by far the majority of people, and maybe that's also the case in England and around the world. But a lot of people, certainly in this country, they do not ask questions. They are very gullible, we have to say, and they roll over on their backs and comply. And we've seen this on a global scale, actually, which is incredible. Is this like a collective mind control, like frequencies being beamed into people's minds in some kind of way, using HARP or directed energy weapons or something else that we don't really know what is? Is this part of the whole AI agenda, do you think?
People are taught what to think, not how to think. The mind is like a parachute. If it doesn't open, it's not going to work. The analogy I use with people when I get resistant in terms of my point of view of keeping my genetics as they are, is I say to people, we're going to go skydiving tomorrow, and we're going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But when we get there, there'll be a table, and there'll be 5 parachutes, but 2 of them won't work. Are you coming? And it's at that point people look at me and say, well, I wouldn't do that. At which point I say, then why take it? If there's that much of a risk, because it is life and death on occasion, and we know that because of the stats, what parachute are you going to choose? I'd rather wait until the parachute manufacturer said it's 100% safe.
Well, definitely. Do you think that we will be seeing a lot of people dying in the coming years?
If the math is stacking up the way I'm seeing it stack up, and with the numbers that we're seeing with the systems of recording that are being diluted, and I use the word manipulated very carefully, but the numbers aren't stacking up in accordance with the difficulties people are finding. The main concern I think I've got, as with Jay, and we've discussed this, is if I was a socio-psychopath lunatic purveyor of control, I'd have waited another 6 months for a winter period so the numbers can stack up to then continue next year. They're not, and the numbers aren't supporting their goal anymore. So they're working towards a date. Why they're working towards a date, that's an interesting discussion, but they've got their foot to the metal on the pedal. They're not stopping, and the math isn't stacking up for them anymore. And they're exposing themselves week by week and month by month, but they're not stopping. So they're working towards a date, a drop dead date.
Wow, that's very fascinating. So you don't think that we'll see a lot of people dying, or what, as people say, or do they have another thing planned first?
Well, again, I'm talking hypothetically, but if I was a socio-psychopath and I wanted to explore people in terms of creating a product that could harm, I'd do a petri dish of experiment. I'd have one that were placebos. I'd have one that had a certain element in them, and another one that had another element in them, and number them all, and then have even more fun by maybe even combining the two different types of liquids to just see how it goes. We're dealing with some very sinister individuals here, and people aren't seeing what I'm seeing. And I'm happy to have the debate with anybody about it, not only about the numbers, but also about the stats behind the liquids that are being used. People are not doing their homework. If the government ever knock on your door and say, I'm here to help, you're in a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So please talk about the date, and please start your presentation. Jay, I think maybe we'll start with you, because you always have a lot of controversial but very fascinating information for us. So this is very exciting. Jay, what can you tell us today?
Okay, thanks. You mentioned earlier, Lucas, about colours and numbers. So I'll just remind your audience that there is energy in numbers and there is colour in numbers. Numbers are important. They are the foundations of the universe. When you connect with numbers, you find communication, and that's what we've been doing with the decoding of the Economist front page magazine. So a numbers energy is something that can be actually heard and also seen. It is not meant as a metaphor. What I'm saying, as it can be heard by human ears, and you can make a symphony of notes with numbers. So this said, you will understand how there are numbers resonating better to you than others, because we all have different cell frequencies. So when you think of a piece of music resonates with you, or a color is more befitting, see it first the other way round. It is actually just of numbers well resonating with you, and just as befitting that you're talking of. It is the numbers resonating to your cell vibration rate that hold the key to your well-being. The matching colors of such numbers and the matching sounds of such numbers will therefore be the most healing and pleasant to your heart, and of the utmost benefit to you, as they will indeed resonate mathematically to your inner body. So nothing is random, and that's why the information that has been found in the Economist magazine, it appears to be an interception of their broadcast to their followers, if you like. And what we have discovered, following on from last year's decoding, is that there has been a broadcast made. I believe it's their last broadcast before what appears to be an event, or their cards that they were unable to play last year because we were able to manifest out of those events. So what I'll do is, if I take you to the, first of all, before I start, I just want to thank you, both Age of Truth and the Age of Truth viewers, for the Checkmate series comments last year. What I would say to your informed viewers is, please share, like, and subscribe this video. I'll just put just a couple of screens here just to say thank you to these people. They can always go back to this and have a look. These are about 300 comments from their comments from the description box from our last videos. Before I begin, I just want to put a disclaimer in, which is basically this material is only for informational purposes. It's not financial advice, and please be encouraged to do your own research, because we're going to touch upon information that is giving you the choice to either act upon it or not. And it's all going to be related to the Economist magazine, because the Economist magazine has been given information out which is financially related. Now, interestingly enough, we have covered this point. The ownership of the Economist magazine is owned by the Rothschild family predominantly. This is a follow-up to the earlier decoding I did from the 27th of April, which I was able to post up, and it predicted a market fall. Now, interestingly enough, on April the 26th, Bitcoin was 55,000, and later, 10 days later, it would fall to 40 and eventually crash down to $30,000. So this Economist magazine is roughly the same information, but it looks as if there are two other events that I found in here which people could consider as cards that have yet to be played. The Economist magazine is usually structured with the 666 embedded in the front page cover. And what I have found is that the 666 is a signature of theirs. Usually the 666 is in the date, the title, and the main image. If I can decode, first of all, the date, and then secondly, I'll decode the title, and then lastly, I'll decode the main image. The date is March the 27th to April the 2nd. Now, in numerical terms, March is 3, 2, 7, minus 4 and 2. So when you add these up, 3 plus 27 minus 4 plus 2, you get 30, minus 6, you should get 24. 2 plus 4 is 6. The title, Bright Side of the Moonshot, if you take the first letter of each of the words, B equals 2, S equals 19, O equals 15, T equals 20, and M equals 13. These numbers are equivalent to their position in the alphabet. The total is 2 plus 19 plus 15 plus 20 plus 13 gives you 69. And if you numerically reduce this, 1 plus 5 equals 6. Lastly, there was an anagram that I found within these letters, and this anagram is tombs, and we'll cover this later on. If you have a look at the main image, you've got 6 colors from the spectrum. So you've got light coming into the vessel and 6 colors coming out of the spectrum. So you now have 666. This is their signature, which indicates that there is information on this front page cover. Gary will now speak to you about the 666 number.
Well, again, it's we're just trying to spread our understanding of how these elemental marks go into our language generally. If you look at the periodic table and you read Revelations 13:18, it says, "Here is wisdom, let him have understanding, count the number of the beast and the number of man, and the number is 666." Well, on the periodic table, carbon, which humans are mostly of carbon and H2O, hydrogen, and 2 elements of water, oxygen, we are the only element, mostly carbon, that has 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. So biblically speaking, and in the Quranic based on 7, but then you've got a numeric change as well, but that also can be interpreted as 6. So this number 6 is an old number used by secret societies, but even on our carbon-based element, mankind is 666 in terms of a construct.
And 666 is the devil, right? I mean, and Satanism and rituals and symbolism is used by these deep state elitists or these bloodline families, the Illuminati ones that we talk about.
the numbers are really interesting because they use these energetic numbers in history. You've got the 33s and the 3s and the 6s, the 9/11s, and again, I explore this in my second book. But there is a definite resonance code within our existence on the planet, and I'm not sure if you can see the next slide that Jay had up. But I've gone through, I go through a lot of different numeric codes within Gematria and within numerology. And there are different forms of Gematria. Numerology, again, is A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Then you've got reverse Gematria and all the different forms of Gematria. But I just basically break them all down. There's some interesting ones with 33 and 666 and 311. And 74s, but just as a quick visit, the simplest one for this presentation is all the following add up in Sumerian to 666, and there's by no means just a coincidence, because if RFID scanner, Satan's FRID, and the V, Mark of the Beast, COVID V, bioimplant mandatory receiver mark, the hand, there's too much of a coincidence, and I could give you pages and pages, and again it's in the second book, where this thing is resonating. This thing exists. It's not something that's just a mere coincidence, because numbers are true. They're zeros and ones. They're binary, and this stuff's entrenched within our language. So if I move on to the next slide, this is an example. If you take Biden as a 666, and I explore this just as one example of all the ones that I've got. The American elections were in 2020. Well, take the word CORONA, that's 6 letters, and that adds up to 6. But A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, that adds up. So C is 3, O is 15, R is 18, etc., etc. But you add up 3, 15, 18, 15, 14, and 1, that's 66. So again, we've got 666 within that word. It's hidden, it's decoded, but it's there. So then if you take 666 and then take the year 2020, the year of the election, but divide that, then you get 30330. And that is the text number that the Biden campaign chose to use. Coincidence? Now it's starting to get a little bit warm. Then if you take the 30330, you add them up, well, 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 3, 9. Well, that doesn't mean a lot, does it? Not until you look at the word Biden. If you look at the word Biden, you'll see 3 red stripes. So there appears another 3. So now we've got 3 plus 3, 6, 9, 12. Well, what's 1 plus 2? It's another 3. Coincidence? Let's move on to the words. So within our language that we use every day, you are entrenched in a spell of words that you're using. You just don't know it. So we'll go through a few of them. Count your blessings against all odds. Do it now. Let it go. Believe in yourself. All is well. These are things you're taught from childhood to use. I call it the chant of 3. It's a way of casting spells on people. People remember things in 3. Which is why campaigns always use 3. Government always uses 3. Make some noise, love one another. Really bad idea. Make it happen, mind over matter. It's all 3. Terms and conditions. We use that all the time in contract law. You're a gem. Now or never. Feed your soul. Every moment matters. This stuff exists and we're using it all the time. Even the Romans did. Veni, vidi, vici. Came and saw and conquered. It's there for you to see. You just need to be shown that this stuff's going on. And one of the most powerful, I love you. Also, I hate you. We need you. That's another one they used in the First and Second World War. Remember the poster with the individual pointing at you with the military cap on? We need you. It was a spell. Now we're getting Build Back Better. We've heard of the Great Reset, World Economic Forum, but here's one to remember. Black Swan event, which is where we're going with this presentation. Now, if you don't think this
But
stuff...
can I just jump in quickly, Gary? Why is that a problem using these words? Some of them are very encouraging and very nice, and we can really use them for, you know, something wonderful for people. I mean, not only just "I love you," but, for example, dreams come true, and all of the, well, believe in yourself. Those are very nice words, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But you see, what it does, the human mind remembers things in threes, not sixes, not nines, not 12s. Threes is how we remember things. We have two hemispheres. Well, we've got the left part of our brain, which is numerics and numbers. Then we have the right hand side, which is more words and art, creativity and art. So most people that are in the numbers games of mathematics and architecture and using numbers generally are left brain driven people. Right brain driven people are the correct creative types. So these words more sit to the right hand hemisphere. The numbers sit to the left hand hemisphere, and our frontal cortex translates those different chants and numbers into us seeing things. If you are right-brained and rely on these words, you are making mental images of these things as you read them. If you're numeric, then they use it in another term in terms of their charts, which is again on the next slide, because this is using words, but also now with just letters, but still using the three. So you do have the ABS and the computer-aided design, CJD. No one's going to remember Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, the DVDs and the HGVs. All this stuff's going on. You just don't see it. And it's all about you understanding that the language you're using isn't just words, isn't just letters. It's also numbers, but you've just never realized it. You've just never seen it. And now you're gestalting, now you're starting to see how they get us to remember things. And then they chant it even further with catch it, bin it, kill it. The three is what governments use. Next time you see anyone from a government organization standing with a lectern, look in front of them. It's going to be a chant of three. They use it as a spell against us. So these numbers aren't just in the language and the spells. It's also in how they construct the numbers with the letters, which then fools ourselves into remembering, not remembering, and using these things in our lifetime.
But don't you think that we can all become too self-conscious and a little bit fearful if we have to be careful about everything that we usually say, and using these letters and all of these words put together? I mean, isn't that almost like becoming a little bit paranoid?
It's not paranoid. It's just understanding that British military call their ships HMS and the Americans use USS. It's just knowing that these codes are there for you to see. And once you see them, it's no longer fearful. It's no longer something to be afraid of, but you've just broken the codes. You're starting to understand how these purveyors use all these different communicative methods against us. And we take the good stuff. They use the bad stuff. It's irrelevant if you believe this stuff, but they believe this stuff. And
so how are all these three letters put together? GMT, CNN, CDC, whatever is on there. How is that used for bad? Is that beaming? Is that projecting a frequency to people when they say it?
Yeah, it's all numerics in terms of what's entrenched in our language. It's not just about words. It's also about numbers, but you just don't see the numbers. So when you start looking at codes within things, you've got to think on two different levels. You've got to think both in words and in numbers for you to see it. And they communicate with their following using all these spells, if you like, And it's about us realizing when we're being played against, when we think there isn't any sinister nature in the stuff they produce against us.
What is, maybe I should not ask that question now because you just mentioned it. I mean, what is the significance of the Black Swan and the Black Swan event, that Black Swan that landed on Tiananmen Square in Beijing in China? I mean, why did that even cause a commotion, or why is that interesting?
Well, I think Jay can, Jay, you pick this one up from here, Jay, and I'll drop in a little bit later, but obviously you've picked up on that, and that's an important element of what we're doing to try to show people we need to break these spells and the stuff they're using against us.
You're actually ahead of the curve here.
All right. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. No, it's just that you've picked up from Gary's slide those three significant words which you have connected with what's gone on within the last 7 days. However, that was information that was hidden in the Economist magazine 4 months ago. So they declared this ahead of time. So just commenting on your observation, it took 4 months for that information to manifest, but I will actually work my way through the next following slides and explain what the significance is around the Black Swan event. What I'd like to do first of all is pick up the 666 that Gary has covered and connect it with the previous 666 communication. Wherever we found the 666, there was hidden information which suggests was a broadcast transmission to their followers. You may remember the Economist magazine that we originally decoded, and on that front page, if you remember the structure, we're looking for the date, the title, and the main image. Now, on this cover page, the main image, out of 136 alphanumerical characters, there were 3 characters which were X's. Now, X is the 24th letter of the alphabet, so 2 + 4 is 6. So those are the 3 X's. So you've got the 666 energy on that front cover, which suggests that there's information buried beneath this. If we take a look at the date, December is the 12th month. 1 + 2 = 3. The year is 2019. And if you numerically add the single digit integers, you'll get 3. Now, 3 and 3 is your 33, a very significant Masonic number. If you add the 3 and the 3, you get 6. Looking at the first line, T is the 20th letter of the alphabet, H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, and E is the 5th letter of the alphabet. If you add 28 and 5, you get 33. Again, you've got 6 there. So you've got your pairing there of 6 and 6. Now, if I can take you back to 1988, everyone's familiar with this information or this front page cover. Again, if we break this out, looking at the 1988 Economist front page magazine, if we look at the date is broken down to single digit 6. The title, Get Ready for a Currency, again, using the English Gematria calculator, you get 6. The main image, it says 10 Phoenix on there. Again, you get 6. Now, where have we seen the Phoenix before? We saw that during the 2012 Olympic ceremony. And if you add the 666 from 1988 to 2012, you get 9 + 2012 = 2021. So that brings us to this year. So if we make a mental note of the date, the title, and the main image, given the 666, and have a look at the coding that we were previously interrogating, we've got 6 for the date, 6 for the title, and 6 for the main image. So that confirms that there is a pattern being followed here. If we take a look at the Economist title, we have Aesthetic Moon. If we have a look at the title, Bright Side of the Moonshot, we get Ghost Fire Biden to host OM. Ghost is a spirit, fire is dismiss, Biden is the 46th US president, and host is a person who receives or entertains other people as guests. Ohm is a unit of electrical resistance. In this case, it's resistance. So if we ordered this anagram, it would suggest spirit dismiss Biden to host, to receive resistance. If we take a look at the date when this magazine was published, March the 27th, 2021, the numerical value of this is 3 plus 2 plus 7 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1. And that gives you 17. Now, what is the 17th letter of the alphabet? It's Q. So we've got the Q energy on this front page cover. Also, if I take you to the article, top article, it's 33 letters. How stable are inflation expectations? The anagram is IFIX Taboo Swan, and all theta is 1%. Now, Taboo Swan connects to your earlier observation about the black swan. The second sentence there, all theta is 1%. This is a connection to the cryptocurrency. There is a currency or token called theta, and 1% is familiar within the cryptocurrency world as the 1% that will rise after the reset. What I'll do is I'll give you the definition of the black swan, which is a black swan is an unpredictable event that is beyond what is normally expected of a situation and has potentially severe consequences. Black swan events are characterized by the extreme rarity, severe impact, and the widespread insistence that they were obvious in hindsight. The last black swan event we had financially was in 2008. That happened when the level of awareness of humanity was lower than what it is today. So that's one point to note. Now, the black swan was discovered, landed in Tiananmen Square on the 5th of September. And this is actually a video. I'm not too sure. Yep, it's a video of the black swan that was spotted in China. Now, if this is a transmission, it's taken 4 months for this to manifest, which suggests that this card is not only being played, but now we have to be wary that other events may follow.
But somebody must have placed that black swan there then.
Absolutely. There's two ways of looking at this. Whether the black swan landed there or whether it was placed there, this is the sign. Now, who is being shown this? Those people that know about the information. It's a signal for something to perhaps follow. And the black swan, as I mentioned before, the last financial crisis that we had was in 2008, and that was actually called a black swan event. So this is what we need to take into consideration moving forward. Now, the other anagram.
May I just ask you something here, Jay? Because what do they say is the meaning of bright side of the moonshot?
Okay, the bright side.
What does that mean for the average person who wants to buy that magazine or who gets that, who's reading that?
Many different levels of decoding it. I mean, the bright side of the moonshot. If you are someone that is has an interest in music, we know what the dark side of the moon is. That's a Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd.
Exactly. So it depends who your audience is and what their level of awareness is. Now, the bright side of the moonshot, this cover is black. Now, if you have a look at the first line of how stable are inflation expectations, that's financially related. And within that sentence, you can make the word Swan. Now, you can connect the color of the magazine with the word Swan, and you will get your black swan. But also within that anagram is the word theta and 1%. And anyone that's in the crypto market knows about or are aware of, there is going to be, when the reset happens, the financial reset happens, there'll only be 1% coins that will rise. So they've mentioned here the word theta. So that's something for those that are in that market to consider.
And you also still think, and you feel sure that the great reset will happen, and an economic crash will occur, and when do you think that will happen?
Okay, it's actually the information that has been decoded in the Economist magazine that suggests that we are on our way to a financial reset, certainly according to this front cover relating to cryptocurrency. And with the word Black Swan, that will be the event surrounding this information. This magazine was March the 27th, 2021. So this was about 4 or 5 months ago or more. Now, in the last slide, one of the last slides, I will put up 4 front covers. And the reason why that's very important is because previously they always hide information on one front page. When I decoded 4 consecutive pages, so March the 27th, April the 2nd, sorry, April the 3rd, April the 10th, and April the 17th, the information on each of those front covers were actually jigsaw pieces, and they all connected. So they changed their formats. They spread their information across four front pages rather than the one. So if anyone was looking at decoding information just on one front page, they would not have known that there's other information in the following pages. And when you put those front page covers together, decode the information, put it together, that suggested a market fall. Now, I mentioned previously, when I had that information posted up on the 26th of April, Bitcoin was 55,000. 10 days later, it fell to 40 and eventually to 30,000. So they had already left that information in this front cover, or one of the front cover, sorry, in the 4 front cover magazines. I had to go back to the Economist 2021, and in the last slide we will look through, there is an image on there of a market, it's a chart of a market going up and down, up, and then you can't see the down, but you can see it's going down. So the magazine's actually suggesting that we are coming to another market fall, but this time it's connected with a Black Swan event. And the Black Swan event is usually, I think what everyone's been waiting for is this financial reset.
And when do you think it will happen?
Historically, it's they usually have the market fall in October.
This year, the crash will happen.
The magazine suggests that, yes, that's what the magazine suggests. If you connect that with the historical data in October, we've got the anniversary, the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. So there's a lot of worried people out there. They usually have events around numbers, their numbers that are of significance to them. And we are going to be going into their what's known as the blood month, their blood month, which is October. So there are cards that they haven't played yet, and people are expecting some events. Now the Black Swan.
Why is, I'm sorry to jump in again, but why is it called the blood months, October?
The blood month, if you have a look at the end of the month, it's the 31st of October, and that's known as Halloween. So that is a, I'm not too sure if I'm allowed to say on on here, but if I spell the word out, it's an Ritual.
I think you can say ritual. I've said it even before.
Oh, good. Okay, so that's why it's known as a blood month. It's an important date in their calendar. Now, the black swan appearing last week, that's a sign for them, and that this black swan is embedded in this front page cover. So if I just carry on, just step by step further on, we will go to the other Economist magazines, which will actually make it clearer that there are events that are pending. We've got the black swan, it's happened, but there's probably at least one more event that is hidden in this front cover, and that's the anagram, which is Spirit dismiss Biden to receive resistance. So let me just carry on further and make my way to that slide. If I can take you back to the level of programming in the Economist magazine from 2020, we took the first letters of each sentence, and the letters are shown at the bottom of the screen here. And if you rearrange the letters, the anagram is I set exit work. Now, I is important because it's the architect behind this magazine. We know who the owners are. It's the Red Shield family. So perhaps they are sending a message when they say, I fixed Taboo Swan. So the Taboo Swan is the black swan. So perhaps we've ticked that box off from last Sunday. Now, the other anagram for how stable are inflation expectation is exceptional swan and theta airlift soon. And again, with theta, that's a coin, and airlift, that's the directions up, and that's soon. So if we've had the black swan event, or sorry, if we've had the black swan as a sign last Sunday, and there's a theta airlift soon, perhaps what's been suggested here is that it's not going to be too long until we have a rise. But before you have a rise, you must have a fall. Now, theta is also on the WHO list of variants. I've actually highlighted theta on this screen here. And if you put the March 27th edition, which we've been decoding, next to the 3rd of April, you can see the direction of the light coming into the vessel, which is there. And when it leaves the flask, it comes out. If you can see when you put the magazine covers next to each other, you can see the line going to the instrument on what has gone wrong. Now, if you follow the red line down, maybe it's a coincidence, but it actually reaches the 6th unit down from that instrument. And maybe it's suggesting that once you push that up to the top, that flag there, the Euro flag, will fall out. So that's another interesting observation. Also, the contents of the instrument on what has gone wrong, there's a lot of debate around the content of that liquid, and the content of the liquid there's been concern that it has a connection when the G and the 5 technology, if that's turned up, what it could do. And that would take me onto the brain waves. Theta is actually a brain wave, so there is a connection there. Also, I've put in the logos of Theta as the crypto coins, just there. Gary, if you want to take over from the next slide here, we've got the anagram, which is spirit dismiss Biden to receive resistance. The question is, what spirit? When will Biden exit? And this is a summary of the energies that have been found on that particular front cover magazine.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be careful in terms of reaching at straws here, but all we're trying to do is decode their code. So if there's anybody out there far brighter than us, please add your words to this presentation. If you take the word Biden in its root origin, there isn't a lot there. But then when I explored the elements within the word Biden, bi meaning two, mono is singular, as in monocular. Binocular means two. Biden means two, but the anagram of den is end. So by end is the word that then springs to mind. But then if you looked at the text of the 30330, the one that I kept looking at over the last year was united. I couldn't see where the word united appeared. And then suddenly things started to make sense. So we need to now go to the way they practice their ceremonies before we lead you into this one, so that people can see there are two types of people walking the earth because of their worshipping. So those who understand Baal worship, B-A-A-L, and sacrificial elements of the history, if you go back to through Rome and then you go further back, you end up in Mesopotamia. And the Mesopotamian god, which became a Roman god, was called Janus with a Y. You pronounce it with a Y. Now, Janus was the two-faced god of duality, gateways, transformations, endings, doorways, and beginnings. So in itself, that was an interesting god that ultimately the Romans and those before them worshipped. For those that are into the occult schools, mystery schools, Janus was the double-edged element of the doorway. Hence, you've got Jachin and Boaz in terms of the pillars of Freemasonry. That's where it originated. And don't forget the gateways. The Janus Gate, for example, is a gate that the Roman army used to leave and enter Rome for luck. All other gateways were considered unlucky. Because it's the two pillars joined, almost like a gateway, like the archways in London and Paris and many of the big cities. This is the reason why, even to this day, we don't walk under ladders. These ceremonies and beliefs are entrenched in us. I remember as a child back in the 70s, at the New Year's Eve, people would open the front door and the back door to their home to allow air to pass through the house. That's a Janus worship. So if you take Janus as a god, we're doing Janus worship even to this day with the number 2.
And also, Janus is also the name of one of Saturn's moons, right?
Well, I'm coming to that. Absolutely right. Because Janus, we have two types of people doing Janus ceremonies, those with masks and those without. And I know what side of the fence I'm on because I've never worn one. So we are coming across people every single day with Janus. So if you go down to the moons of Saturn with Saturnia and Saturn worship, you'll see Janus right in the middle. But of the two faces of Janus, to one side, you have Prometheus. Now, Prometheus was a god that gave mankind fire and information and was punished by the gods. And then the other side of the Janus, you have Dion, which is really Diana. And Diana was the goddess of sea and money. So we have a bit of a problem here in terms of the ancients knowing about Janus, Dion, and Prometheus. I'll give you a question here. We know what a PCR is, and it's a test. But there's only one machine that's used throughout the world to test blood and examples of what they're taking from us humans. and the machine is called, if you move to the next slide, it's called a Janus machine. Again, another coincidence. So all the PCRs being carried out are in regard to, again, Janus worship. I don't think this is pure coincidence.
And do you think that there is something in those tests that are not good for us as well? That those tests are also quite dangerous, or
absolutely,
what?
Absolutely. I myself, I'm a man of proof. But when Occam's razor, everything is pointing towards one singular direction, you've then got to make an astute choice about what you think's going on. And when you have things like Janus being used to this level, it becomes more than just a thought of coincidence, because even if you had all the letters of the alphabet to produce the word Janus for a PCR machine, not coincidence in my opinion. So if we move to Bright Side of the Moonshot, when I did my digging, came up the inquisitive nature of off them sorceries, batch deception, and heed nations might. Now, I ran through these and I thought that's a very strange thing, because we've got sorceries, we've got deception, and we've got nations. Well, I suddenly came to the conclusion I recognize those three words. And if you run through sorcery, deceived, and nations, you come up with, because I've read the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran, you come up with the word sorcery, which is actually a bit of a confusion because it's Revelations 18:23. And if you take Revelations 18:23, it's the following: and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Well, if you take the root word for sorceries, it doesn't mean magic people. It means pharmakeia. It means pharmacists. So it's saying at the end of days, within Revelations, for thy great merchants were the great men of the earth, for thy pharmacists were all nations deceived. So I start to get a little bit uncomfortable when these coincidences start to form in my mind, and then I move further down, deeper into some of the interpretations. Jay was doing at the same time, and it was hilarious that when we realised that we were finding out the same sort of exploratory nature, but we were finding things equally. So if you take the Economist magazine, if you look at that, Lucas, if you read the 27th of March magazine, what do you see in that title?
Bright Side of the Moonshot, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and then 3rd of April.
What has gone wrong?
Excellent. And then 10th of April.
Riding high.
And then let's move to the 17th.
Huh. Untied Kingdom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, there's a thing going on here, and again, it's another gestalt. Many of you informed...
So is that a reference to Brexit, Untied Kingdom, or what is it?
Well, it's actually a gestalt to show that something's now at breaking point. It's come to an end, and there are viewers, your informed audience watching. Some of them will have had a gift. Your first language isn't English, so I expected you to pick up on that. But those of your audience out there, some of you saw United Kingdom. And for those people that saw United Kingdom, don't fret, because it means you have a translation element within your mind going on. It's like when I wrote the first book, I wrote it in a different language called Leet Speak on the front cover of Putting a Stopper in the Bottle of Death. because it's a different way of looking at the language in the words and how the words are translated of what that's hidden. They've put this thing into the Economist magazine, and I would say about 40% of people read that first time when they look at it as United Kingdom.
Yeah, you have to look a little bit careful. I mean, you have to really look at it.
And those that read United Kingdom, all I'd say is well done. I didn't expect you to, because English isn't your first language, but those that speak English that didn't see Untied Kingdom, you've got a bit of a gift. So you need to keep going with your gestalt in terms of seeing some of this stuff. And then if we move to the Economist magazine of the world in 2021, when I had a view on that, there was some pretty strange things going on, because
and quite obvious it would appear. But let's see if it's Biden in the second row there, huh?
Yeah, well, Biden appears, but let's go back to the first one. At the first, you've got the big C word of the first image disappearing. Then you've got the liquid, but then you've got Janus worship on the negative with a question mark. You've got the tearing of the American flag in two. Okay, TikTok's become quite popular in the last 2 years. But then we've got, shall we say, a weapon at the very top. And again, that's a strange thing to put out there in terms of how you'd have it on a one-armed bandit.
What kind of weapon is that? It's very small here on my screen. Can you?
It's shaped as a anyone knows a weapon called the two weapons called the Fat Boy and Little Man, used in Japan. It's one of those things.
Aha.
So then we've got the dollar symbol, and obviously the energy issues that are going on, which are debatable. We've got everyone's using cameras at home to communicate, but then we've got another very interesting symbol, and that looks to me like the symbol that Jay discussed earlier in terms of a crypto, although it's dressed as a tree within fire, but it looks very similar. And then above that, right at the top, we have a market rise, a market fall, a market rise. But if you look very, very carefully, it's a big crash that comes after it. And again, the handle on this this game of which they play has a globe. So it's a global event about something. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. These energy things are there. You've just got to see them, to understand them, and interpret them as best you can with what broken tools we have. But more and more of us are coming together to crack these codes.
And can I just ask you, Gary, what are your thoughts on flat Earth theory? We see a globe, and we see a globe everywhere. We just did quite a popular show that was actually our first show on flat Earth theory, and a lot of people are starting to really talk about this. Many say that this is also a divide and conquer CIA psyop, but a lot of people also say that because of globalism, they show you a globe all the time to program you to believe that as well. So it is certainly dividing the truth movement as well. But what are your thoughts, guys?
I'm a chartered building surveyor, so math is my game, and I build big stuff like bridges and waterways and canals. We're taught that there's a drop of 8 inches in every mile on an inverse calculation. So 2 miles would be 32, 3 miles would be 3 miles is 74. So there is a calculation in terms of curvature. But within degrees, minutes, and seconds, I'm not sure if you're aware what they are. They are they're movements of circular calculations of how we have GPS systems operate and work. So I use theodolites often, and we use degrees, minutes, and seconds to triangulate our positioning on this plane. Now, I use the word topography carefully because we have hills, mountains, and rivers, and the River Nile is supposed to run uphill. So there's a problem there for me straight away. There is a problem within degrees, minutes, seconds, which within the seconds, and it's 3 seconds. There's also an issue in regard to mapping. Now, cartography is something I know a lot about, obviously, because I use maps for positioning. But if you look within book 1, I've given examples of general maps, and that our maps that we're given every day are false. So that's the first thing. Maps are false. If you want a true map of the world, get a Peters map, which stems from the Mercator systems of mapping. And then there's another mathematical issue, because a nautical mile is different to a land mile. So I could probably talk to, it'd be an interesting discussion to have with someone in regard to flat Earth on the math side. I'd more than enjoy that, but there are problems. I know that there are problems, and I'm speaking as a chartered surveyor that believes that the world is round, but there are problems.
So there could be something to it in one way or the other, you think?
If you look at our mapping system, we have the equator, and then we have the line of Capricorn, and the problem I have is that we're moving from the age of Pisces into Aquarius. Now, all our mapping systems are all based on that, and we only visit the stuff that's in regard to Capricorn. Well, if our mapping system went back correctly 200 years, our maps would be very, very different what they are today, but they're not. So there seems to be a problem with our historic use of maps also. But you see, because Rome wanted the world to be flat, because they wanted us to have the birth certificate system, and they wanted us to be able to sign documents, which is why they called it the 4 corners of the world. They wanted us from a 3-dimensional element into a 2-dimensional element, so that when we signed, we basically could become paper for when they turned us from a free individual to a registered person. And I won't bore you with that, but I could talk about the law and how our birth certificates are actually constructed to make us into a 2-dimensional element for debt, which is from 4 papal bulls, which is, again, in part of my research of what I've written about. So but that's a whole different discussion. But it goes to show that the church want us on flat Earth. That we're taught that the globe is round, which I believe it is, but I have some serious mathematical problems with it. So it's not like I'm not trying to sit on the fence. I'm just showing that I'm always open to discovery, and if I can find things myself, I'm more than up for a debate. I like good conversation, and I like being challenged. And when I'm wrong, I admit I'm wrong. And that is obviously what we should all be doing. We shouldn't be throwing stones at each other. We should be helping each other. So I don't know if I've answered or not answered your question, but yeah, there's a serious discussion to be had of the things that I've seen. And as an engineer, I know. So yeah, I'd be happy to have a chat with you on that one at a later date, no doubt.
That would be very interesting. Maybe we could do a roundtable on that, certainly, because it is It is becoming a little bit confusing, but certainly very, very significant. Actually, also it's a important discussion to have. But do go on with your presentation, either you or Jay.
If you have a look at the bottom left-hand corner of the dates, you've got 27th of March 2021. When you numerically add that date up, you get 17. And if you add the far right Economist page, which is 17th of April 2021, if you add the 17 to the April 2021, again, you get 17. So again, you've got this, the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. You've got the Q energy here again. But in this case, I mentioned to you earlier, the information found on each of these front page covers connected. They all, it's like a storyboard. So this was a transmission. Started off with 17 and it would finish off with 17. What we have got so far, in summary, is that the Black Swan has appeared last Sunday. So we can tick that box off. Now we've got the financial market, which if you have a look here, top right-hand corner, the market fall has already happened in April. And if you followed the chart upwards, as Gary pointed out, you can see it's falling there. Now, if that were to fall around a Black Swan event, that would be a crash. And that is the information that we found in this particular decoding of April, but it's been summarized here a year early, which is this magazine here, which is December 2020. So they have declared this well ahead of time.
And you say that the crash might happen in October.
Well, we've had the Black Swan event. The month of October historically is when they do bring the markets down. So the probability is quite high.
And this is what Klaus Schwab has written a book about, how the Great Reset.
The chance of 3. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So can this be changed? What is, I mean, now that we get this information out, what will happen from there then? What's the significance of getting this information out as soon as we can?
Well, there's two things. Humanity have reached a stage now where we have to work together, we have to connect together, we have to share information. By sharing information, you're raising the frequency of everyone, and that will and can create what's called the 100 monkey effect. So therefore, we have the ability to manifest a completely different reality, a reality that we want, a reality that is in line with Earth's vibration at this moment in time. Last year was a different vibration. The space energies that are coming now onto the Earth, it's raising everyone's vibration and raising the consciousness of everyone. Whether we can change this, I'm not sure, because if they've declared this, the best we can do is prepare.
And how do we prepare, Jay?
Get together as self-organizing collectives. Because of what happened last year in 2020 with the health crisis, humanity is now divided. So you will find that you will be in the right place at the right time. You just have to follow your heart.
I'm of the opinion it's all about consent and dissent. If enough of us say no, none of this would have continued. None of this insanity would have gone on. Nobody would be doing the Janus rituals with mask wearing. If everyone just said no, no means no. It doesn't mean maybe. You can't be half pregnant. So if everyone just said no, we do not consent. As far as these mystery schools and maniacs concerned, they put it out there for us to see. And if we don't dissent, they class it as we've given them the green light to continue. Well, what we're trying to do, we're just trying to show the level at which which they work, so that people can sort of make their own decisions on this stuff and just say no, because it's all about the collective choice. We say we got a democracy. Well, a democracy is only when 51% of the people tell the other 49 what to do. But if enough of us say we do not consent to this, under their own rules, they can't continue. So the Great Reset becomes their problem because they have to reset. And we've just got to break these codes, see these codes and recognize how they operate. And once we've figured it out, they're in a huge amount of trouble. And I think this is part of this collective awakening of people who are coming together. I would never have met Jay unless this disaster happened 2 years ago. And all the other people that I've come across, I'd almost be semi-retired now and not written a book and not be in this fight of this insanity. But for some reason, I'm in this battle. You're in this battle. Jay's in this battle. And we don't want to be here, but for some reason we're having to step up. We're having to do it because other people aren't. Well, it's time for all those others to say, come on, it's time for you to get moving too, and just share this information. Just get it out there. I mean, if enough people saw presentations like this, and their resonance changes, and they don't operate in fear and low frequency, but a higher frequency, who knows what could happen? It's the fear that keeps us indoors. It's the fear that has us buying bigger guns and bigger locks for our doors. It's the opposite we should be doing. We should be opening our doors. We should be chatting to each other. We should be hugging each other. We should not be wearing masks. And that's precisely what they don't want us to do. So just say no. Just say, I do not consent. Things are going to change. That's my view.
That sounds really very great, and we can do we almost must do what we can, you know, at the moment, and then to see how we can work through what is coming and withstand the whole situation that we're in. It's very difficult. But now they're also rolling out the climate change agenda again, and now in Afghanistan they're doing that whole thing very interestingly close to the 9/11 event, that date as well. What are your thoughts, Gary and Jay, on them rolling out the climate change agenda?
Well, Afghanistan is a different picture, because if there's a very good book I read. I don't have a TV. I read 3 or 4 books a week, but there's a book called The Politics of Heroin. Heroin is mentioned on the GDP, the gross domestic product of both the UK and America, both legal and illegal drugs. Well, my question is, how does the GDP number appear in the GDP setting of illegal drugs? I've got a bit of a problem with that, because there must be someone in the State Department has got a magic calculator to figure out those numbers, unless, of course, they're involved. Other products are available. But if you think that drugs are 40% of the GDP of the United States, the flow of heroin would be awfully important. And don't forget, the last time the Taliban, which means student in its root origin, it's not a group word. It means student. It means those who wish to learn. So the Taliban, when they got control of the poppy fields, they destroyed them all. Next thing, the Americans went back. So you've got to know your history. It's the same with Somalia. You know, the Somalian pirates, everyone complains about them, but the reason is because when their economy collapsed, they had no navy, couldn't support their fishing grounds, and all other countries and nations around the world started to dump their ships there. So if their ships are being dumped off the coast of Somalia and all the fishermen have got nowhere to fish because their nets keep getting caught, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to buy an AK-47, aren't they, and become a pirate. So it's you've got to know your history. You know, I've talked to mercenaries who work on these ships on these straits, and they say that when they do have these Somali pirates coming alongside, they don't shoot to kill. And I said, well, why not? And they said, because there'd be no work. So humanity's got to think very differently in the way that we are thinking. You know, it's all about greed, and more greed, and it's the wrong way of looking at things, in my opinion.
And Jay, do you have some last thoughts for our audience? Is there something you want to share here before we end?
On a final note, let's have a look at how the information has been hidden as a storyboard across the 4 front pages that suggests the crypto market fall and rise, and whether there is a connection with last year's Economist annual edition. Is this the first fall that we've already seen in April? And is this the second drop that's to come? Is the previous storyboard across the 4 front page covers connected to last year's annual edition of the Economist magazine titled The World in 2021, which shows a one-armed bandit machine? Slot machines are also known as one-armed bandits because the game's ability to empty players' pockets and wallets as thieves would. The slot machine term derives from the slots on the machine for inserting and retrieving coins. This front page magazine was published December 2020, which illustrates the 2 drops on the chart, and previously the other 2 drops were published in April 2021, which was 4 months later. The question this information leads us to: is there a crypto market full of 2 drops? If so, we've already discussed 1 drop since April this year. So when is the next one? By placing the annual Economist magazine titled The World in 2021 next to the last front cover page titled Untied Kingdom, the journey of the storyboard appears to continue, but more importantly, exactly points to the location of the pay line on the slot machine. Let's take a closer look at these 2 front cover pages side by side and see what connections there are. As a reminder, the last 2 annual editions, once placed side by side, indicate a hidden time frame. Note the use of font colors that have been reversed. This brings us back to perhaps an event rolling in, which is the financial chart that occupies the 10th position, or is that the 10th month? This symbol is very similar to the crypto coin logo previously decoded. Especially when you reverse the symbol. The words "on the 10th" and "fire" appears as an anagram in the subheading. The following words can be made up from the remaining letters. The next step is to find out which one of the 4 front cover pages are connected to both of these. We can do this by calculating the numerical value of the dates, which can be then converted to a familiar letter of the alphabet. By placing these cover pages next to each other, let's see what connection there are around anagrams. By typing in "on the 10th" using an online dictionary, a connection is found. Did the annual edition of The Economist, published in December 2020, declare 10 months ahead of time, an issue on the 10th month 2021, and to fire up at all? We create our own reality from our minds, thoughts and feelings. If we feel happy with peace now and project this happiness outside with the feelings of this inside, the reality outside will change to reflect this change in inner state. So choose to create reality based on light, love, life, peace, joy and abundance. The outer media, news and predictions are there to create a state of fear. If we choose the opposite, we manifest the other reality. It's important not to consent to the false flag events found hidden in the Economist timetable and choose to turn off the fear-based media to create love and light-based reality from within.
Yeah, let's hope people will share a link to our video when it's out. That is what we need, so that we can also keep our channel going, because we are heavily under pressure at the moment as well, and we are being shadow banned and ghosted and censored. So it's quite a difficult situation for all of us to keep going and doing the work at the moment.
It's horrific. I mean, I've had my book banned. I have to deal with Amazon, who I use the numbers as well, not only in the book itself but also in the selling. So the 1999, they take £8, and so I sell directly for 1666. So it's all about us fighting and fighting. I'm out there. I don't care. I'm a builder, and anyone wants to have a go at me, I'm a bit of a lump. So I'm quite used to a challenge. But even on Facebook, I'm shadow banned as well. And the people that help me keep me going with my 60-hour-a-week day job, we're in a fight for our lives, an absolute fight for our lives. But we're not going to stop, and we're going to win. We're going to win.
Wow, this has certainly been a couple of incredible hours, 2 hours that we've had together here today. Explosive information, very vital, very important information. It's a fascinating world to go into. Numerology, words, numbers, codes, and decoding. And you are certainly expert magicians in that. It's been absolutely fascinating, and we hope that people will share links to this video and to spread the news, to support our work as well, and to get the important message out there. The more people that wake up, the more we can change the world together. This is all about enlightenment and understanding. And there's so much more we could talk about, so much more we could get into, and we would love to have both of you on the show again and also do individual shows with both of you. But for now, I just want to thank you so much, Gary Fraughn and JK of the Clapham Saints, the Clapham Sect, for being on Age of Truth TV today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lucas. Thanks for your time. See you later, Jay.
See you, Gary. Thanks, Lucas. Thank you, Loga.
Thank you so much to Gary Fraughn and JK of the Clapham Saints, the Clapham Sect. And thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruthtv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruthtv as well. And please follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Your support is greatly appreciated. On behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.